Good morning, it's Harvey Jackson. We're just going to go through, it might be a boring topic for some, but I just find some of this interesting. Um, so, cooling U.S. inflation actually was expected around 3%, came in at 2.8, and the stocks, S&P unchanged, NASDAQ, and that's overnight, but yesterday, holy smoke, did we ever have a down day. So Trump, and this is another interesting thing, and it's about some of the inflation and recession coming in, and you can see that there's a problem even with his own base here, uh, with the Republicans. 29% of them are thinking that he's being a little bit too erratic. No kidding. Anyway, um, uh, here it's part of the same article, but U.S. Commerce or Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says recession would be worth it. Well, I guess if depending on where his businesses lie, he's probably, and I'm going to say a lot of the politicians work this way, and maybe this is just my slight this morning. Um, he's probably working in an area to try to get less regulation for his businesses, and the same with all of the other rich people that hangs around with President Trump. So it's not for the common person, the fixes that he has. Uh, Here's a Charlie Biello, just looking at where the CPI data has come in, and it's a little bit lower than expected. You can see Canada's been a little bit higher, um, and here he looks at the recessions. And what I find interesting is I keep on pointing back to these kind of timelines, and the length of the bear market is a little bit longer than you think. And what he's using as a measure is the S&P, which Trump always wanted to quote earlier in his previous administration. And you can see probably that he probably won't be quoting it at all. This is the CPI data, just so you can get an idea what the CPI is made up of, and the changes. So you got transportation up 6% or 6%, gas utilities 6, shelters up, food is up, and then there's a few things down. Fuel oil and stuff like that is down. Just another way to look at it. He's just pointing out where and how many months, consecutive months of 3% uh, for the core CPI inflation. Susan Shroud put this out on Twitter, and interesting again, but you can just see how the trade policy uncertainty index, and here's your NAFTA top stuff way back, trade, and then so far, trade talk 2.0 has been pretty uh, erratic, and you can see here this is Trump so far in his that this is a 250-day term that she puts. She also posted another one that was a little bit different than this as well. Um, I'm wondering when Doge is going to maybe shut down where they can report the CPI and stuff like that, so that they don't see this data and people don't see it as well. Maybe that's the next department to close down. Canada files to sell U.S. bonds. So this is just another tit for tat thing, and I think if we recall, who holds the most U.S. bonds is China. So if they start doing the same thing, they can actually kind of cripple the U.S. Economy as well. So just an interesting note here, if you understand that part. Great Lakes, you can see that the ice cover is reducing pretty rapidly. I think just yesterday I was looking at it, was at 15%. Now we're down to 12.4%, and you can see the ice is starting to lighten up in color. So it's very light, but they still have to get through this here. And there's icebreakers in these three, and there's icebreakers over here too, but in the deep water in the Great Lake Superior, but not in the bay as of yet. I see some tugboats moving, but just interesting. We get another a week like this, and we might be moving grain through the Great Lakes here. Uh, so here back into some of the grain here. So Indonesia is predicted to have a normal dry season this year. So they were impacted with too much moisture at times. Putin's been advancing to push out the Ukrainians in his own country in the Kursk region, and they're meeting for a ceasefire. But he's pushing pretty hard right now to gain as much ground as possible, so that if there's any ceasefire, see if that can actually hold. That could be part of the reason why wheat is holding. There was actually some ships that got hit right in port as well. I think it was owned and ran by Louis Dreyfus. Anyway, uh, Susan Shroud actually just is very interesting when you start looking at the percentages of U.S. egg export destinations and origins as well. Um, Karen Brown just pointed this out, and she kind of says it all at the top here. Trump has suggested farm imports in the USA hurt American producers. Whether this is true or not, it's interesting to note that the U.S. and ag-related imports have outpaced exports for the last decade. So you can see it right here. Let's just have a look at the markets here. Canola is up. Oh, and quite a few of the markets are up after the big down day that they had. So you can see a little bit of a green on the screen here. Whether that's a pause here, I'm not too excited about getting into this just yet, as we've had some pretty bad uh, down days here. Pretty hard to defend against a market that made a newer lower low because you don't know where the lows are. But, and on the new crop, this looks interesting, and you may want to look at taking some positions over here. We haven't dropped as far, but it's something to look at here if we can get a pause here. Rapeseed, that one's fallen pretty good here as well. And if we look at what rapeseed price is versus uh, Canadian canola, we're almost $170, 169, I think it is, as posted here. Uh, More expensive, but here, rapeseed has fallen pretty fast, and the Canadian canola has fallen maybe not as fast, but it sure feels like it has, and that's where I would gain maybe a little bit of traction. Here's your soybean oil. Uh, that's not your trend friend here. Palm oil, nice little bit of a recovery here after some uh, big moves that we've seen in the other markets that we just showed. Uh, didn't show up in the palm crude oil. Soybeans, that is not a trend friend here either, but we could be basically saying that there could be a little bit of support there, but it's not all that promising just as of yet. Soybean meal, recovering a little bit. There's definitely more need for soybean meal as some of these, that even the trade going into China with canola meal, there could be a little bit more emphasis on getting a little bit more meal for themselves there as well. Canadian dollar, basically a nothing sandwich here, but still middle of the range as it's traded. You can see what I'm talking about. You take some of those highs and lows off there. And this is just going back to some of the big trade moves in the minute chart. Wheat looks okay, supported. Still looks like a buy and hold kind of a situation. Same thing with new crop. Still waiting for that $7 kind of mark. We never got there on the past run, but we can be somewhat hopeful that it's going to get there. And let's have a look at the Kansas or the Chicago. Nice little move up here as well. And your milling wheat, it's it appears almost that there must be a decent crop breaking dormancy over there because it's definitely pulled right back. And here's your corn. Nice little move up. Big round down day yesterday. Uh, if we have these positions on, I think we put some floors underneath some prices there and moved them up yesterday with a couple of the clients. Let's keep those floors fairly tight just in case this corn wants to fall apart. That's all I have for you today.